Hello, welcome to Run Testers. My name's Nick. In this video, I'm going to be comparing the Adidas Adizero Evo SL and the Hoka Mach X2. So I want to do this comparison because even though these two shoes have quite a lot of differences between them, they both would sit in the same kind of place within a running shoe rotation, which is in the middle of that rotation as your speed day shoe or all-rounder daily trainer. And actually when we did our rotations video recently, I was trying to pick between these two and it was really hard for me. I think they're two of my absolute favourite shoes on the market. Two I would pick up myself for my own rotation if I was starting it again from scratch, and just both really excellent shoes. They are slightly different in price though. The Adidas is the cheaper shoe. It's £130 or $150, whereas the Hoka Mach X2 is £170 or $190. The higher price there is by virtue of the fact the Mach X2 is a fully fledged super trainer with a plate in it, whereas the Adidas has a more stripped back approach, although it does have a super foam in the midsole. It doesn't have a full plate running through that midsole. The Adidas is the lighter shoe. It's 224 grams or 7.9 ounces in the UK 9, US 9.5. In exactly the same size, the Hoka Mach X2 is 255 grams or 9 ounces. The Adidas has a 6mm drop, whereas the Mach X2 is a 5mm drop. And the Mach X2 is the highest stack shoe. It's 44mm at the heel and 39 at the forefoot for the men's shoe, and then 42 at the heel and 37 at the forefoot for the women's shoe, whereas the Adidas is 39mm at the heel and 33 at the forefoot. It comes to the design of the two shoes. With the Adidas Evo SL, you've got a pretty minimal mesh upper with a little bit of padding around the heel and an internal heel counter as well to add some structure at the back of the shoe. You have a full Light Strike Pro midsole, which is the super foam that Adidas used on the Adios Pro 3 carbon plate racing shoe. I think they've tweaked the makeup of the foam for the newer model, the Adios Pro 4 and the Pro Evo line of shoes, and there's a small nylon shank in that midsole as well, but like I say, there's no full plate running through it. You've got a pretty sharp forefoot rocker on the shoe, and then on the outsole, you've got Continental rubber used for the forefoot section, and then Adidas's clear rubber for the two strips at the back. With the Hoka Mach X2, you've got this lightweight woven upper with a very racy feel to it. There's not much padding at all around the back, and the heel can be a little bit problematic for some people, and not a lot of structure either. It's a very flexible, lightweight upper all round. You've got a dual density midsole with a top layer of Hoka's Piba foam, like the bouncy foam they use in their top racing shoes, and then an EVA layer beneath that, and in between those two layers is a P-Bax plate. So you've got a plastic plate essentially running through the midsole of the Hoka Mach X2 to give it a little bit more flexibility than the full carbon plate, whilst adding that kind of stability and propulsion you expect from a plated shoe. You've also got a rocker geometry with the Mach X2, which is more noticeable at the heel than you have on the Adidas, and they've both got quite sharp forefoot rockers, like I say. You've got slightly more sparing rubber coverage on the outsole of the Mach X2 compared to the Adidas. A couple of strips at the back, pretty good forefoot coverage, but there's more cutouts and, like I say, less coverage than you get on the Adidas shoe. Comes the fit of the two shoes. Both of these are a UK 9, US 9.5. I've been happy enough in my normal size for both of those shoes, which is that size. It's the same size I use across the entire Hoka range, and usually with Adidas. I do find that Adidas's shoes come up a little bit shorter than Hoka shoes in the same size, and that's the case with the Evo SL as well. So if you are maybe between sizes, it might be worth going for the half size up. In the Adidas, I was happy enough where I was, but there's probably lots of people out there who might want a little bit more room in terms of length. In terms of width, I'd say the Mach X2 is a slightly narrower shoe, as is often the case with Hoka shoes, but both been fine for me. I have a pretty narrow foot. So all round, the fit's been pretty good for me in the toe box and around the midfoot, and it's been really good at the heel as well in the Adidas. The Hoka Mach X2 has a slightly trickier heel design. Like I said, it's a very racy upper, and that thin section at the back can cause a little bit of rubbing, break the skin for some people. I have actually not had a problem with it myself. I've run a lot of miles in the shoe now with it, both heel locked and not heel locked, and I find it's been okay for me, but some people will definitely have concerns about that. With the Hoka, with the Adidas, you've got a less problematic upper in terms of the fit. It's a bit more comfortable and daily trainery than the very racy upper you have on the Hoka. So on to the run test then. As I mentioned at the start, these are two of my favourite shoes on the market and two I'd very happily pick up for my own rotation. I would pick up for my rotation. I've done about 140k in the Hoka, I think, and about 120k in the Adidas, using them for a really broad mix of training runs. I've done a lot of fast stuff in these on the track and on the road as well. Done long runs. I've done just nice, relaxed, easy runs as well, because they are two very versatile shoes in my opinion. So with all that in mind, the differences and cons I'm going to point out of each shoes going forward, they're all very slight. I think these are both excellent shoes all round. So both shoes are more focused on speed than easy runs, it's fair to say, but I do think they are very versatile shoes, depending on what you really like in your shoes. If you're someone who wants a very cushioned, relaxed shoe for easy runs, this isn't it, but I do find that they are comfortable enough for easy runs, and then really come to life when you do start to go through the gears and run at faster paces. The Hoka is a higher shoe, and you really notice that on the foot. It's got a slightly stiffer, firmer feel than the Adidas as well because of the plate in there, and a really fast and noticeable rocker. It really pushes you from your heel through your midfoot and onto your forefoot, and you get a nice amount of punch off the toes as well. Adidas is definitely a softer shoe, a little bit lighter and nimbler. You feel a bit lower and closer to the ground. You still got that very sharp forefoot rocker, but the heel has a bit more of a relaxed feel where it is quite soft, and the whole shoe, you do notice the flexibility and the extra softness and the amount you can press it a bit more compared to the Hoka because there isn't a plate in there, and that does give it a really nice feel, a very relaxed and cruisy feel when you are at easy paces. It does make it actually, I think, probably a little bit less stable than the Hoka because it is a bit softer and you might roll a little bit more inwards with the Adidas, especially with that medial side cutout it has, whereas the Hoka has a slightly more controlled feel almost, even though I do think it's got a very fast and forward thrusting rocker on it. So like I said, I've done a lot of different speed work in both of these shoes and they both really performed well for it. I say when it comes to those longer sustained effort sessions, the kind of thing I do in marathon training a lot, whether it's just a long block at speed, a progression hour, I'm finishing for a hard pace of 20 minutes, or doing something like 4x4K at around marathon pace or marathon effort, I think it works for those really, really well because the plate does give it a little bit of the edge on the Adidas in terms of just helping you to keep rolling through efficiently and maintain fast speeds. I think when it comes to that short stuff, they both feel really good for it, and the Adidas has that very nimble, lightweight feel that is really nice in the shoe to be a little bit closer to the ground, to have that softer feel almost, that it gives it feel a bit more of an old school shoe in a way, even though you are then getting that really punchy bounce from the modern super foam you have there. So when it comes to like short, sharp reps, it does perform really well. I did some 400s on the track and really enjoyed using it for that. And I have done those kind of tempo, sustained pace efforts in the Adidas as well, and it performs well for them. But I do think the Hoka not only performs better during those runs, but I think probably protects the legs a little bit better as well in how quickly you recover if you're doing something like a double day or even just running the next day. It just probably gives you that little bit more of that modern super shoe benefit you get here of that slight efficiency gain and the protection of the legs during those hard training runs. So I did do a run in both shoes at the same time, and it is very noticeable how much lower and softer the Adidas is, especially at the heel. It's got a really nice feel at the heel as a heel striker. You do land on that soft foam and you then get rolled through nicely and you get loads of bounce off that forefoot and it's kind of soft all the way through. The foam really compresses. Don't really feel that compression with the Hoka. It is a bouncy shoe, but the rocker is really sharp, really fast. You feel that stiffness from the plate, and then you get a nice amount of punch off the toes. But yeah, it's a really fast turnover shoe, the Mach X2, whereas I think you get a bit more sink in and then bounce with the Adidas. But maybe it isn't quite as effective in pushing you onto your toes. But it does have, like I say, a slightly more relaxed and enjoyable feel if you're maybe not going flat out. So verdict was a really tough one, this. I mean, if you watch the rotations video, our best rotations video, I debated this and basically made my decision during the video because I do love these shoes so much. I think they're both really excellent in what they do, and both I'd very happily have in my rotation as my speed shoe, daily trainer, all-rounder option. They're both fantastic at that job. I think in the rotations video, I did eventually lean towards the Mach X2 just for the kind of runner I am. Nearly always marathon training, nearly always doing longer runs with kind of speed sections in them, or those longer workouts which maybe aren't flat out pace but they're kind of sustained efforts. I think the Mach X2 does those a little bit better. You've got a little bit more support and kind of punch underfoot and really good at sustaining speeds like I mentioned, whereas in the Adidas I think is probably the one I recommend for most runners. Like if you're not in marathon training, you're not doing lots of those long sessions, even if you are in marathon training and you're just doing the odd speed work but mostly just racking up miles, I do think the Adidas is a fantastic all-round daily trainer, really comfortable, really fast, really fun to run in, and yet would suit lots of people better than the Hoka, and is a lot cheaper, which is a benefit as well. I think if you're looking for a stand-in racing shoe here that you want to use instead of maybe carbon plate racing shoes, I would look at the Hoka myself. I do think it's got that slightly faster feel, especially if you're looking at a long race. Just be careful of the upper, which is an issue you don't have with the Adidas. It's another reason maybe just to look at it if you're not really sure which one you're going for. You save a bit of money on the Adidas, still getting a great shoe, got a slightly more comfortable upper, but for me I think the Hoka just works a bit better as a speed shoe that I would use in my rotation. That's a comparison of the Adidas Evo SL and the Hoka Mach X2. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, ring the little bell, and we'll see you next time.